When it comes to finger picking, you've got to have a steady thumb. In this video, we'll walk through a series of exercises that will help you get your thumb picking up to speed. Hey, John here with your Tuesday Blues, and every week we cover a cool acoustic blues topic like this one. This is a big one. We're going to talk about alternating bass. We're going to cover alternating bass from where you should start if you're new with it, all the way up to a more complicated and challenging three-string alternating bass line. First up, what is alternating bass? It's a bass line that alternates, and for us as guitar players, that's really talking about alternating between two or more strings. So a part like this really sounds like you've got a bass line happening because we're alternating between two pitches, and then of course you've got the finger picking, the melody that happens on top. It really sounds like two parts are being played at the same time, and it's really the thumb that's kind of making that happen. So here's an example part that covers a two-string alternating bass. Alright, so the alternation that's happening was between the 5th string and the 4th string, alright, over this D chord where we're playing the melody, alright? So just this by itself doesn't sound super complicated, and it's really not, but it can be difficult to get down into your playing. So I want you to do a couple of exercises to help you get your thumb picking where it needs to be to tackle parts like this. All right, the very first thing that I want you to do is actually not alternating bass at all. I want you to work yourself through some exercises and make sure that you can just get your thumb used to doing a steady pulse. I've covered this exercise before, but something like this where you just pump the open low E, right, and then move your chord through different beats. So that's on beat 1, we can move it to beat 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or get in between the beats. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But all the while, you're building the muscle memory here in the thumb to just plod along in time. All right? Now, I used to do this sitting around watching TV and just mindlessly pumping this out. I don't want you to do that because you can get there, but I think that'll take a long time. I'd rather you sit down with a metronome and play along to the click. And start out with a rest stroke where you just push through and rest on the next string. So if you're starting with this open E bass, push through and rest on that 5th string. Don't sound it, and I've got a palm mute happening just to keep the thing from ringing out like crazy. But put your palm down, push through, rest on the 5th string, okay? That rest provides a little bit of support for the movement. And again, do this along with a metronome. You want to play on top of the clicks. All right? Then let's move on and do the next more challenging thing, okay? We're going to level up just one notch here by introducing another pitch. And this is where alternating bass really starts to sound pretty cool, especially when you layer in with some chording or a melody. But let's move to, let's play a C chord here. And your alternating bass needs to be between the 5th string and the 4th string, okay? Just regular C major chord. And we're still going to push through and use that rest stroke, okay? Where you're kind of resting on the next string. But what we're doing here that's a little bit different is we've got to return and skip over the 4th string now because we've got two strings involved. So this travel, you want to make sure that you do that in time. That travel might be the difficult spot for you, the spot where you're not hitting that note in time always. But this is where practicing with a metronome will come in handy, okay? Again, don't do this when you're sitting on the couch mindlessly plucking around. You can do that. I did it, but it took forever to do it that way. A smarter way to do it is to practice along with the metronome. Start slow and progress through the tempos. Focus on the return. And if you need some space to nail that return, do this exercise. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Use that extra half of measure where you're not playing to bring that thumb into position. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. But then you want to move on to examples where your alternating bass is happening to strings but skipping a string. So let's take that D chord, let's make it a D7, put the F sharp in the bass here, and you've got to skip over. So get that F sharp and that D. Those are two common notes. So this is a 6/4 alternating bass, just referring to the string numbers there. And again, use those rest strokes, push through, rest on the next string. And that travel back up now is going to be probably the challenge point for you. So do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's speed it up, but still leave that half a measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's try to play all of the notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, now let's move on to something that I know a lot of finger pickers struggle with, and that is the 3-string alternating bass line. It really combines both the 2-string adjacent pattern and the 2-string skip pattern that we've covered. All right, so let's take the C major chord. This is a common place where you're going to encounter this 3-string alternating bass. So we've got our C major chord fretted here in the open position. You start out a measure of the 3-string with this 2-string. We've already covered that. We're using our rest strokes. All right, but then we use a split, the string skipping pattern where we go 6/4. To do that, a couple things happen. We've already worked on our thumb doing its job and making that travel back down to the 6th string here, but notice that I changed the bass on the 6th string. It's not open. All right, instead I'm putting the G in the bass on the 6th string. Still using that rest stroke, still using my palm mute. And we're doing the adjacent bass, string skipping bass. 5/4, 6/4. Again, along with a metronome where it's clicking off, that's when you're plucking. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, one thing that might help you here is instead of just playing these notes super clean, push through on beats 2 and 4. It adds a little rhythm, and that might actually help you. I know it's one more step in the complicated direction, but it can actually give you a little bit of a sense of beat, of timing, and it'll help you swing it a little bit. So I'm just pushing through on those 2s and 4s. Still got my palm mute here, you don't have to. But to keep it nice and controlled, I'm just pushing through strings 4 and 3 now under this. And of course, this is a pretty bright tempo. You don't have to do it this quickly. Slow it down. And I hope you can hear how this forms a nice bass platform for you to do some cool country blues picking. You're one step away from playing a cool country blues with that alternating bass skill in your pocket. And that next step is really all about the melody. But the key to getting all of this is you've got to put in the deliberate practice, okay? You got to sit down with a metronome. You got to work yourself through the exercises. Now, we work hard and constantly on fingerstyle fundamentals like this inside BGI's premium membership. I'd love to have you come along, check it out, and level up your finger picking. There's a link in the description. I'd love to see you there. If you dig this lesson though, give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and come on back next Tuesday for another Acoustic Blues lesson. I'll see you then. Until then, practice smart and play on.